Nothing says fun, fresh, exciting content like a tag that went up over 2 months ago. Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I know you're very close to my face and it's not normal, and I hope that I blended my makeup pretty well, but I wanted to get up close and personal because today I'm going to be doing the author origin tag. I was not tagged to do this by anyone because no one ever tags me in things because I don't have any friends. But I saw Meg Latour do this and I decided it was pretty cool. It's sort of like a superhero theme tag, and I'm not like a super big superhero fan. I saw the Avengers like 4 times in the theaters, and then ever since then, I don't care. But I thought this was a super cool original tag, and I'm just now getting around to doing it because I'm a piece of trash, and also I didn't make any videos in October, and her video on this came out at the end of September, so leave me alone. I will link her video in the description below because knowing me, I'm not going to write out all of these questions in my description, but she did, so if you need them like written down for you, you can go to her video. You're welcome, Meg. Question number 1 of the author origin tag is backstory. So when and why did you start writing? How old were you? What genres were you interested in? And I've talked about this before, but I always wrote like in school and stuff, but my main foray, yeah, I write words, I don't say them. My main foray into writing was when I was about 12 or 13 because I read Twilight, and I was always super into vampires. I loved Buffy. That was right around the time I think that True Blood started to be a thing, and I was just always super into vampires, and I loved Twilight because it was written for me as a 13-year-old girl, and it really inspired me to start writing my own similar stories, and my stories were very similar to Twilight. When I first started, they were basically Twilight fan fiction. But that was really what got me. So obviously I was really into paranormal things. I was really into vampires, werewolves, witches, demons, all that kind of good stuff, but YA. So like no cussing, no sex, no like drugs or anything, because I was a kid still. So that was really what I was into, was like YA paranormal, which like hello, still am. Question number 2 is protagonist. What was your first main character like, and how have your tastes and muses changed since then? So it's kind of funny because civil blood has been a concept I've been working on ever since I first started kind of writing when I was 13. So Fina is definitely not how she was 10 years ago. It was a whole problematic mess 10 years ago. I did a video where I read snippets from my very first manuscript I wrote when I was 13, and you can view that video if you want to understand how problematic I was as a 13-year-old white girl writing about Mexican witches. It was really bad, and I got a lot better about it, and now I understand sort of how to write people of color. I can't say that I do because I'm not a person of color, but I haven't really had any sensitivity complaints. And sort of similarly with River, he kind of was always how he is now, but he was much more of like an aggro, alpha, douchebaggy type of guy at first because I was 13, and I only had like very few male role models to kind of show me like what I would want in a man, and like all the guys around me were kind of like alpha, aggro, douchebags. Like not my dad, but like the guys that I like grew up with, do you know what I mean? So now don't write aggro douchebags as love interests or problematic racist stereotypes, so like growth. But I'm also way more interested in writing more complex people. I don't want my females to be damsels in distress. I don't want my men to be unfeeling, afraid to express their emotions, afraid to cry. Number 3 is antagonist. What's the worst feedback that you ever received, and what was your first big confidence breaker? Now, kind of tying into the last one, Fina and her family have always been Hispanic. She has always been Mexican. Her parents have always been from Spain. Like, it has always been that way. Even when I was 13 years old, I was writing them with the last name like Calderon, and they have always been Hispanic. And she has always been Mexican specifically. It was never about pandering. It was never about being trendy, about writing to people of color. It was never about that. It just was how it was from a very young age. Now, did I write stereotypes and as a young child, not really understanding like what that was about? Yes. Obviously, I don't do that anymore, but she is still Mexican. Her family is still Hispanic, and River is still mixed race. River was not always mixed race, but he was always ethnically ambiguous, and that's just how they came out of my head. It was never about pandering. It was never about being cool and trendy. And I have gotten messages from people saying that I'm hopping on the POC bandwagon to be trendy and to pander to people who want to see more diversity in books, and I'm white and it's not my place to write people of color, when that's the worst feedback I've ever received, and I'm just not going to go into that anymore. I will continue to write people of color. I have not had any complaints from people of color about the way that I write them. And as far as the part 2 to that, my first confidence breaker was really, I mean, I had a lot of rejections, obviously, but my first real, like, huge, like, do I really want to pursue this moment came from my Kindle Scout experience. I did a whole video. I'll link all these videos. I'm gonna have a lot of videos to link in the description below about my experience with the Kindle Scout program through Amazon, which is now defunct, oops, and the way that that really hurt me and crushed me because I had put so much time and energy into it, and how I kind of got over it. Number 4 is superpower. What do you think is your greatest strength as a writer, and how has it changed over time? I have been told that I have a gift for quippy, quirky characters and dialogue. And then more recently, as the book has been, you know, kind of spread throughout the people in my life, they've told me that I'm very good at describing setting. I was not always that way. I used to just get straight to the point, like dialogue. A lot of people told me my first couple of drafts read like a screenplay and not like a book. So I really had to do a lot of learning and growing to kind of figure out how to describe setting. And then once I did, I used some of my favorite writing resources, which I talked about last week, to kind of stretch that out, sort of like a piece of chewing gum, and stretch and like get deeper into it and sort of paint a mental picture. So those, I guess, are some of my greatest strengths. Number 5 is kryptonite. What are some of your greatest weaknesses, and how has that changed over time? What's really funny is now that my book is sort of out in the world, a lot of the feedback that I've gotten is that sometimes it was confusing to tell who was talking, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe I didn't use enough like tags of, oh, she said, or this person said, or that person said. But what I'm starting to understand is that is reader lingo for the voices weren't distinct enough. There were so many characters that their voices weren't completely distinct enough for you to be able to tell who was saying what at certain points in my book. So I definitely, as I grow and as I start writing this 3rd book, am working on honing voices. I know it's kind of too late now because the first book's already out, but working on honing voices and sort of making everyone way more specific in their turns of phrase, way more specific in their sort of inflections and syntax, way more specific to every single character, because that was like a huge wake-up call for me when people were saying they couldn't figure out who was talking, and I was like, well, it's clear that she said this and he said this, but they really meant the voices sounded too similar. Number 6 is training. How have your strengths and weaknesses changed over time, and how have you strengthened your craft? So I just, you know, kind of talked about how my strengths and weaknesses have changed and how I've kind of grown a lot as an author. And if you watched my video from Wednesday, I use a lot of writing resources, and I think it's really important to study the craft itself, reading books on it, taking, you know, Skillshare classes and things like that, watching fellow author tubers, reading blogs and things, just kind of getting a taste for other people's style, a taste for other people's advice, who have done the same things that you're doing, or in a little bit farther in the journey than you are. I think it's really important to reach out and grab all of the advice and content and education that you can on the craft itself, and that helped me so much with my voice, with my syntax, with my confidence, with everything in terms of like the actual writing career type stuff. Number 7 is weapon of choice. What is your favorite writing program? Now, I was a Microsoft Word ass bitch for a long time, and then we all know, like 2 years ago, or like a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, I lost all my stuff through Microsoft Word. My zip drive that I had it on completely got corrupted. So now I use Google Docs. I love it because I can share manuscripts with people through like link sharing and stuff. I can write anywhere. I don't have to have my little zip drive with me. As long as I have internet, I can work on stuff. And it's just, you can add, like, I just really like it a lot. I like the whole Google thing a lot because I'm not worried about losing it. Number 8 is your trusted sidekick. What is your favorite writing companion? Does it vary from day to night? How has it changed over time? I never really had to have like something with me, like as a kid or whatever. I would just write wherever I could. Like I'd write on the bus on the way home from school. But now I write in the mornings with coffee. When I am drinking, because sometimes I go on these dry times where I don't drink anything, but if I'm drinking, I drink wine. At night while I'm writing, I like to chew gum because I will snack if I don't, and I'll eat a lot of goldfish if I don't. Number 9 is 0 to hero. What sort of success did you think that you'd be having in your writing career? Are you on track to have that? If not, how has your dream evolved? So when I started writing at 13, I was going to be the next Stephanie Meyer. I was going to be the next J.K. Rowling. I was talented because my parents told me I was. So I obviously had huge dreams. I was always a huge dream kid. Like I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to be a famous author. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a pop star. I wanted to be on American Idol. Like I had all these, you know, you have daydreams when you're a kid. That's what being a kid is so great. Now, as I've had my tiny little tastes of moderate to small successes, I realized that my goal is to make enough money on my books to pay my bills. And my huge aspiration is to make enough money to pay off my parents' debts and be able to pay my bills just writing. I just don't want to have a 9-to-5 job anymore. That's called growing up. Don't do it. It's a trap. Number 10 is remember my name. What sort of authors and books influence your taste, your style, and your genre? So at first, obviously, it was Stephanie Meyer. It was the author of the True Blood books, whose name I'm totally blanking on right now. Charlene Smith, maybe? Wow, I don't know. And then as I got a little bit older, Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll, the Beautiful Creatures series, obviously. I got really into Harry Potter in high school. I was really late to the game there. But then J.K. Rowling became like my obsession. And then right around that time was when I started getting really into Stephen King. So J.K. Rowling and Stephen King have always been like they are like the two like main inspirations. J.K. Rowling because of her success and her world building and everything, and Stephen King because of his, you know, expansive career and his just endless well of creative ideas. Lately, I've been super inspired by writers like my friend Bethany Atazada. I really enjoy watching her journey. Paul Tremblay is one of my huge inspirations nowadays. He is like the new king of horror. He is fantastic. I really enjoy YA books of all kinds. I've actually started lately to start to delve into contemporary books, and that has a lot to do with Jenny Han and Angie Thomas with To All the Boys I've Loved Before and The Hate You Give. Those books were getting so much buzz. I was like, okay, let me and To All the Boys is like my go-to new like comfort movie book. Like that is like if I'm upset, if I'm sad, I want to hang out with Lara Jean and Peter Kavinsky. Like that is like my go-to. And then The Hate You Give obviously is such a poignant, timely, important book, so well written, so intense and beautiful and funny and sweet and cool. And that's really started to influence me to want to write a contemporary. Those two particular books, instead of kind of pull away from the dark, spooky things that I write about, the paranormal, the horror, the thriller, kind of pull out of that. But I think I will always be a YA writer just because those books are just the best. Number 11 is Marvel versus DC. So how has comparison harmed you? And I experienced this not so much with my writing, but a lot with my social media content, with my blogs and videos and stuff of like, I work a 9-to-5, so this is like a second job for me. And a lot of the people that I'm friends with on like Twitter and Instagram and here on YouTube are full-time writers, and they do this as their job, completely full-time. So it's hard for me to see all the content that they pump out, all the work they get done, and me just sitting here like not posting any videos in October was really hard for me. But I didn't have time, and I didn't have the mental strength and stability to continue to push myself to doing these things when I did not have like the juice. I just didn't have the juice. And that was hard for me. This comparison game of like, well, she put out 2 videos this week and she's written 10,000 words and you haven't done anything. And it's like, I purposefully scheduled myself a break in October so that I could enjoy the success, like the release and success of my first book. Like, I deserved to take a break, and I still was like beating myself up. So majorly, social media has really harmed me in terms of comparisons, but it's a necessary evil in this business. Everybody knows that you have to promote yourself and you have to network. And so I just try to remember that we're all in different parts of our journeys. Number 12 is the obligatory love interest. What genres have you grown to hate/love? And I mentioned this a little bit earlier about YA contemporaries. I have really started to like those. I read like We Were Liars. That was a whole different type of thing for me. I'll Give You the Sun, obviously, To All the Boys, and The Hate You Give. So that's been really interesting for me because I didn't think I would ever care about those types of books, but I've really started to like that type of real world, the scariest thing is yourselves sort of situations. Well, To All the Boys is just a fluff, but I really like that book. I don't know, sue me. And as far as genres that I've grown to hate, I don't know if I grew to hate this because I never really liked it, but it's dystopian. I've mentioned it a bajillion, fulfillion, gazillion times. I don't like it. I don't like it. Bethany's book, Evelyn's Number, is like the only current dystopian type book that I do like, and Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. But The Hunger Games, I never finished reading it. I did see it in the theaters. I never read the sequels. Divergent, I've seen it. I never read the book. Like, it doesn't appeal to me. I don't know. I just don't like it. And I've grown to dislike it even more as more and more have come out. Number 14 is your superhero name. What is your pen name? History? Do you write under a pen name? Blah, blah, blah. So, back in the day, when I was a very cringy 13-year-old and I was writing, I would write under the pen name Artemis Cullen. I know, it's a lot. Take it in, regroup, refocus, keep going. So as I started to work on publishing Civil Blood, I wanted a pen name mostly because I hate my last name. My first name is great, my last name is ugly and horrible and I hate it. So my middle name is Renae. Victoria Renae. That's my name. It's like Victoria Renae. Perfect, great, kind of long. And I was on the phone one day with a friend of mine, and she was like, V, like, I just don't know what to do. And I was like, VRENAE. Like, that's a great, like, VRENAE, done, cool. Like, that's such a good idea. So that's why I started going by VRENAE, and then shortly after that is when I started creating all my writerly social media accounts under VRENAE. I had tons of other ideas in mind. I was going to use my sister's name. I was going to use... when Carrie Fisher died, I started thinking about using like her name because Stephen King's Carrie is one of my favorite books, and Carrie Fisher was a huge inspiration to me. And so I thought about being like Carrie Renae or something like that, but VRENAE just fits. Everybody thinks my name is just Renae. I don't know why they think I put a V in front of my name, Renae. I don't know. It's a whole thing, but that's where my pen name comes from. And the last part of this tag is Avengers Assemble. So it is tag some people that you want to do this tag. And I'm gonna tag Lisa Corries, Brianna Morgan, and Amara Luciano. So I'm gonna link their channels down below. You can go bother them to see if they did the tag or not. I make videos every Wednesday and Saturday. I am sick and I'm gonna go take a nap. But I'll see you on either Wednesday or Saturday, whatever day after this video comes out. Bye.